Welcome back to the channel. My name is Crawford. This is Virginia's for Lowriders. If you've been here before, you know what I'm going to say, because I say it every time. We're getting back on the Mazda. We're doing progressy things. We're trying to get to mini nats in like a month, which I'm going to show up, truck or not, running or not, at least hopefully trailered there, maybe not driving while it's there, but I'm trying to get the truck there. That's the goal. We're making progress every weekend. There's over 35 videos now of this build. If you've never been here before, go check them out. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of me rambling and explaining and doing stuff. A lot of work going on here. Again, like we did last week, gas tank, progress, things are bolted to the truck and painted that weren't bolted and painted to the truck the previous week. We left off last week with me needing to order parts. A subscriber recommended that I go through and possibly hardline the bags and the tank in the rear of the truck to get in between the tight tolerances that I have to work with, because I don't have very much room to work with. The bed is a factory bed floor that I raised like, I don't know, probably it feels like 10 years ago, but it was like 8 months ago or so on the channel. So it's way, way back there. I raised the bed floor in that before I decided I was going to go through with the body drop. So the bed floor, if it does work, it's going to be extremely close to the notch, if not laying on the notch, and then I have to raise more of the bed floor. So the plan is to work with the space that we have in hopes that I don't have to cut into the bed floor anymore, and I just have to remove some bracing. But most likely that's not going to happen, and I'm going to have to raise a notch cover. So the idea for this week, I ordered parts, which I will show y'all, is plumb the bags, the tank, everything into the cab. Last week we left off with putting some bulkhead fittings in the cab, and I'm going to do that on both sides. That way we can tie those airlines into the cab, through the cab, into the air management. It's a Slam Specialties manifold block. Very small, compact, straightforward thing. That's the plan. I've never done a complete hardline setup on a bagged vehicle, so we're going to be learning some stuff. We're going to try to get all of that plumbed, the bulkheads on the other side of the truck, and then move on from there. I have, like I said, I got some parts I'll show y'all. Let's just do that real quick. I got the sending unit in, did a little test fit yesterday. It's slightly different from the factory one, so we're going to have to work around that. I got this fitting in. A Facebook friend of mine actually reached out and said that he had the same issue where he needed to replace this, so he sent me some part numbers. So thanks for that. I'll try to, I'm really, really bad with names, so I apologize. I got the hard line, sending unit, rubber thing. I got some hardware so we can try and get some more stuff done on the wiring. But we're just going to jump into it. It's Thursday. I'm trying to get a head start on this. So I'm going to try to not ramble a whole lot, which I say every time. And I talk about my ADD every time because I can't stay focused and I bounce around. Just what happens. So we're doing that. Thanks for coming by. Don't forget to subscribe if you've never been here before. Again, like I said last week, I have return viewers. Let's just say half of my viewers per video are return viewers that aren't subscribed. So if you aren't subscribed, do that. Please, it would be much appreciated. Let's just jump into it because I can already tell the rambling is going to get crazy. All right, before I forget, I looked back. There's two guys, Larry and Tim. They both sent me links at actually the same time. So I don't know who to give the credit to because it was literally like within a minute of each other. So they sent a Ford part number, which I can add this to the description or comments if you just let me know, and a Ford rubber gasket. So this guy will go in there, that'll go on top, This is a rollover valve. The factory one that was in the old tank was so dry that it was brittle and had shrunk a lot. So we're going to try to get that in. I got the new sending unit in that I mentioned. I picked up stainless steel, I guess they're anodized or black oxide stainless steel bolts. I really don't want to put bolt holes into the freshly painted, shaved firewall, well, partially shaved engine bay. So the only options I really have, I made this little bracket, which is dangling up over there, that I painted last week, to mount this guy. I was going to weld it, but then I couldn't figure out how to paint it after I welded it in there because it's too tight. So I want to bolt it in, something like this. And I wanted to, just trying to avoid bolting it through this, but I bought black bolts, and that's like me settling with something. Another thing is I bought stainless steel black oxide lock nuts for those. And then this box, as you can tell, is from Switch. I purchased 2 rolls of aluminum hardline. I was going to do stainless steel, and I got reading about it, and I really don't want to go away from push connects. So if I go away from push connects, I was to rub a hole in the line, or a fitting take a crap, or whatever happened on the side of the road, I always try to think of these as, I want to get in it and daily drive it. I want to drive it to work in the morning and not have to worry about it. So my thought process on this is, say a fitting took a crap, and I keep soft line underneath the seat, just in case anything was to ever go wrong. I can't really fix that on the side of the road unless I replaced the fittings. With the aluminum line, the push connects will accept the aluminum line. It's soft enough for them to bite into. According to Switch, it says on their descriptions they run it on everything that they build. So if it's good enough for them, it's obviously good enough for this one truck that, yeah, we're going to make it work. So that's the plan. Don't talk. Get something done. It's Thursday. It's kind of late already. So I'm going to start off slow tonight. We're going to make baby steps. Baby progress equals big progress later. We're going to put the sending unit in and that rollover valve, maybe make some fuel lines, and it'll probably be too late to actually get anything done. Like, as far as that, I need to focus on that, and I don't think I have that in me tonight. So let's stop talking and get something done. So I just set this in here to get an idea of if it's actually going to fit. This is a slightly different design than the factory one. The top plate is the same. A little bit of a different angle, not a big deal. Everything looks good. The only thing that's kind of weird is the angle on the actual pickup tube is completely different. This one used this weird little filter that slides on the end of here and just kind of locks on. Yeah, I meant to do that. Kind of locks on by twisting it in place. This one, this rests on the bottom of the tank, and this is basically the tube is too long for this to even kind of work. So I guess you just don't run a filter with this style, which I'll be running a filter in the front anyway, just to catch whatever. So just like not this one specifically, but this style of a filter. Yeah, I'm just gonna bolt it in and fingers crossed, I guess, that there's not gonna be anything weird about it. I don't know. No idea. Well, it's Friday. Got the sending unit in yesterday, and the rollover valve. Started making hoses. Then I get a little bit of a roadblock. I don't know what that line is, so I need to figure out a line that goes from 3/8 to 1/8 inch vacuum port or something. I'm going to the junkyard tomorrow with my buddy. Weather permitting, we're supposed to go to the junkyard, but it's also supposed to be some kind of winter storm tonight, so I own boots. As long as they're open, we're going to go regardless. So I'm going to try and look at some other trucks. Went out there and looked at my four-wheel drive parts truck, and it's fuel injected, so the tank is completely different. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on in there. But tonight, the plan is to start ruining some hardline tubing. I bought 2 rolls. I shouldn't need 2 rolls. And because I know that I'm going to mess it up. And I'm going to need to probably redo at least one of the lines, or maybe all of the lines twice. But to be honest, that's probably what's going to happen. So that's the plan. We're going to attempt to make some line for the first time. And to assist with that, I showed you all these before. It's what I use whenever I'm making brake lines. They're meant for like hanging random stuff in your garage. I got them for $5 whole from like Gabe's or something. They're bendy. You can bend them over and over and over, and they don't get messed up. So I bent this into the general shape of what I'm going to need to come out of the bag, cross over the notch. So we're going to turn this into some aluminum tubing. I made this. This isn't my idea. I found it on the internet. It's famous last words. I saw this on the internet. But I saw this. This is a tubing straightener. It looks like a 4x4 block, but actually tubing straightener. Drill a hole slightly, like 1 increment up. It's 3/8 line. I drilled a 23/64 hole, and you can see here, I just fed the line through the hole, and it straightens the roll out. Whenever I do the next length of it, I'll show how easy and simple that block of wood works. And you don't have to buy the... I looked at them the other day. They're like $80 or something crazy for the ones with the little wheels. Totally unnecessary, because it's going to get bent up into some crazy directions anyway. I just need it. It's pretty straight. I think if I would have had like a 6x6 to where it could have kept the pressure longer, it would have been perfectly straight. But it's good enough for me. Good enough for who it's for, as James says all the time. So yeah, stop rambling. Do something. That's what we're doing. The whole wintry mix thing didn't happen, so we're just Going to the junkyard, and it's actually kind of nice outside. You can see here that's the wintry mix in its entirety on my windshield wiper blade there. So yeah, I'll take y'all to the junkyard today. I don't think I've done that before. See what we can find. Hopefully something good. I'm looking for interior pieces. I need that clutch spring that I melted into goop. So I don't know. See what. Hopefully there's something there worth taking home today. It is extremely windy out here, but I figured I'd give an overview of the local pick apart. So I think it's a couple thousand cars according to the website. The prices used to be really decent, but they've recently gone kind of crazy. It's almost like normal junkyard pricing now. The search begins as there's, I don't know, I haven't been in here for so long. It used to be trucks and Japanese cars, and now it's kind of jumbled up. It's weird. Oh, I found one. One of them is in the expensive section. Somebody's pretty well robbed this thing of everything that's good. The body's in decent shape. Looks like it has newer Ranger seats or something, because they're not exactly square or bolted in all the way. Tailgate's bashed in. Got the wrong bumper on it. So, let's see if I can find another one. So, it ended up being a bust. They had 4 listed on the website. 2 of them are in the expensive section. Hopefully you can actually hear me over the wind, but yeah, they had 1, and I didn't see any good usable parts. I wanted to get that spring, but I don't know if I was willing to lay on my back on that nasty carpet to get that spring today. If it comes down to it, I'll pull it out, but I'm going to avoid that for now.
We haven't done this in a while.
No. Used to be like a every weekend thing.
I know.
Well, junkyard didn't work out, but I'm back in the garage. I did some editing, did some couch sitting when I got home, because it felt like that was much needed after being out here till 11:30 last night and then getting up at 7 this morning. So one thing I did figure out, I just took care of. I ordered some line off of Amazon, of course, because that's where it seems like most of my stuff comes from, because nobody around here has anything in stock. This is, I gotta check back, 1/4-inch line, I believe. It says it's fuel line. It kind of looks like small engine fuel line, but in this case, I really don't think it matters, because it's going on a vent and there's not fuel flowing through it. But it actually stretches to fit on the rollover valve, and it fits on top of that teeny tiny line going to the evap can in the front, which is no longer existent. So if anybody runs into the same situation, that's what I ended up using. So again, anything that y'all see me talk about, if I can find a link, I'll send you a link. Just let me know. Last night, I didn't get that side, but this side is plumbed now. Everything's looking pretty decent. I don't know what I'm doing. Initially, I wanted to come down the frame rail and run them basically like this, all the way down the frame rail, and then kick up into the truck. I thought it would have looked a lot cleaner, but I actually did some thinking about it and found my OCD brain, that portion of my brain, wouldn't allow the sides to be different, even though there's all kinds of jungle gym stuff going on here, and it really doesn't matter because it's underneath the truck. I wanted them to match for whatever reason. So if I was to come through here and run down this frame rail, I welded a tube directly in the center of that frame rail. So, thinking about it, with that line over to the side and attached to the bed mount, I can do the same thing on this side and they'll match. And it'll look somewhat symmetric-ish. And to do that, well, it's Sunday now, and I didn't do a lot of rambling yesterday, and also kind of missed recording some stuff. So I'm interrupting what I was going to explain about the aluminum tubing going to the cab. I made all of it, and I was sort of happy with it, and I got thinking about it and overthinking about it. The entire reason I did the hard line was to have clearance between the frame rails and the bags. So I got thinking about the fact that I would never be able to remove that line if anything was to happen to any of the lines. Again, paranoid, I overthink it. I'm trying to think of everything as like, I want this to last, daily driver stuff. This truck sits outside, never gonna be in the garage. At least, not for a very long time. Not until I get a garage built. So, everything is trying to make it reliable. So I was thinking and overthinking and overthinking. I got the aluminum lines made and everything's even and nice looking. It's pretty decent for my first time. I'm going to say it's not terrible. But I made those lines going up to the cab. For whatever reason, I just didn't like the way it looked. And then again, the way it is now, if anything was to happen, chafing or whatever does actually happen, that line is so long and so weird to get in and out that I would have to cut it out if the bed was attached to it, basically. What I came up with, I had some of these unions. I understand that I'm making a possible leak point, but I had these unions, and I figured making this stuff out of DOT line from here, I'm able to remove that section, just pull it out from there. I could pull it out underneath the bed, laying underneath the truck. Same thing with this. I just reach up, pull the line out, no big deal. And for whatever reason, I like the way that this looks. The DOT line flowed a little better than the aluminum stuff. For some reason, the aluminum line just swooping down and coming out of here and picking back up into the cab just looked unfinished. And I end up going back and remaking the line and coming down and putting a 90 from here up to there. And I don't know, I just couldn't convince myself it looked good. I think that this makes more sense. It's more serviceable. Everybody knows that the DOT line is tried and true. So I'm getting the clearance from my bags, plus I'm getting some function. And again, I understand that's a leaking point, potentially. I'm willing to take the risk. We'll see what happens. I did get the cab drilled, and I did record it about the other set of bulkheads going in, which it is kind of like a optical illusion. James and I measured it last night. These are the same height. They're within a like 1/8 inch or a 1/16 of an inch of each other. But those look lower. I guess just because there's so much going on here. But I need to figure out something to do today. Yesterday, James and I were going over battery options. I have the standard Honda. This is what I made the battery box for. I think my final decision is this Group 31 because it is, I don't know, 1.5 inches narrower, and it actually has comparable cold cranking amps, comparable runtime, all that stuff. I would like to run these, but these really don't like the amp draw of compressors, so 35 I think is the way to go. Now I just need to determine if I want to mount it here or the other side. The only reason that I'm kind of leery about mounting it on this side is there's already so much going on over here. The fuel lines, the air lines, the brake lines, the trailer harness, or the bed harness is supposed to come through here, which I got to figure out today also. There's a lot. That's another thing I'd like to do is delume all of this mess, relume it, clean it up, make it look halfway decent, and get that set in to where it's permanently mounted also. One more thing that I'd like to knock out today is potentially making the hard lines from here to the block, and then mounting that thing finally. Since I made the bracket and I bought the bolts, I need to get that mounted because I've talked about it like 10 times.
Do you have your serious look on right now? Cue corny music. Like, you gotta have suspenseful music. Like, is he gonna make this cut?
Baby steps. The other side, I cut it and it was too short.
Oh my gosh.
And then I moved it around and it turns out it wasn't too short. I have no idea. It's like I had it bent in just a right enough way.
Angles.
Like this, any which way you put it, it's too long.
But if you
put clamps on it, like this,
beautiful. So weird.
yeah, it's perfect. So, a couple things I have learned when doing this soft aluminum line. It's in some ways more forgiving than brake lines, and in other ways not as forgiving. So when you make your bend, commit to your bend, because if you don't, you cannot bend it back, or it potentially will fracture the line. Another thing that I figured out, I've been using this little brake line tubing cutter that I have. Unless this wheel is very, very sharp, you're most likely going to ruin the end of the line. It is not nearly as clean of a cut as a nice, sharp blade on here. I don't know if this will actually pick it up. If this will focus, hopefully you can actually see this. This was cut with that dull little brake line cutter. This was cut with my nice tubing cutter. See the shine? And that edge is nice and clean and I don't have to do anything to it. This would need to be deburred, cleaned up before it'll actually go into that fitting and make a good seal or whatnot. The aluminum line is actually very easy to bend by hand if you needed to just put a curve in something. And it actually looks smooth as long as you give it a good amount of pressure with your fingers. Very surprising. It's weird because it's so soft. Like brake line isn't this easy to bend. But I feel like if you moved it around too much, there's very good chances of you kinking it and potentially breaking it. Like cutting that's almost effortless compared to brake lines. Gotta figure out how tight I want this to be. I've been trying to do increments. Every time I make something, I try to do it in increments. I'm not good enough yet to run a tape measure and figure out exactly where the bend is going to land and the math behind that. I don't have enough experience with this, so as time goes on, I'll pick it all of that up. For right now, we're just kind of winging it. Just winging it. It's cool. But this stuff, again, it's been super easy, almost completely effortless. I think I'm going to do a nice gradual curve into the box. I think that'll look cool. I don't want to do right angles. I think right angles is just, I don't know. I think this will look nicer because they'll all be doing the same thing. Both sides, it'll be smooth. Looks like a spider. Kind of weird, but not look bad. Nice and even all the way across. I think I'm cool with that so far. And I can run my other line somewhere around this area. I'm going to put bulkheads in the front. I think I'm going to do, not today, but when the time comes, I want to do bulkheads out of the firewall, hard line over here, and then down into this. That was one of the things that bothered me before. With the airline, it had to come up and swoop over kind of a big arch in order to get anything that wasn't going to rub and didn't kink. The only downside I feel to the DOT line is that it needs big swoops in order for it to not kink and get all funky. So let's do something else. Let's mount that little metal thing because I painted it like a week ago, and that's something that I made like, I don't know, 4 weeks ago at least. I need to mount this thing in here and then mount this little fuse block to it. So I'm going to drill some holes in my already painted inner fender wells, so wish me luck. One thing I did want to mention before I get into drilling that stuff into there, I did self-tap all of this stuff to the frame. But with self-tappers, what's nice about it is it's like pre-drilling. When the truck was here last time, I didn't self-tap the stuff. I actually drilled and tapped the frame rail and put 1/4-inch bolts in everything. There's actually a few tiny spots that I missed filling the threads in, but every one of those will eventually, not saying it's going to be anytime soon, will get removed, tapped, and an actual bolt put in it. Self-tappers are pretty tough. I mean, we hang 20-pound fire extinguishers off self-tappers at work all the time on machines, and it vibrates, and they don't come off. So I have full trust in a self-tapper. It just doesn't look as clean as it could be. I don't know. I usually at least use the ones with the little washers, so they're a little cleaner, and it stops the tapper from trying to spin anything that it grabs a hold of. But yeah, I just figured I'd mention that. So I'm kind of thinking somewhere in this range, wherever my little cables are going to allow. Like I said, initially I was going to weld this edge to this, but then I don't know what would make me think that would work, because if I did that, there's no way for me to paint the backside. So I'm still going to use that edge as a spacer to where I know where to mount this thing to where it's not going to get in the way. It'll stop it from trying to rotate or whatever. But thinking maybe just 2 bolts here. This thing doesn't weigh anything, and neither does this, so I don't think I need much. Probably get away. I could really probably get away with 1 bolt because there's no way for it to rotate. But maybe I'll drill 1, see how it feels. I'll go from there. I know I clipped a little cover on there upside down, but it looks pretty good. I was able to utilize that bolt to put a rubber clamp on there, so everything is nice and tight in. If you've never been here before and seen this, I did it like, I don't know, 10 videos ago. These are zip tie mounts. You just weld them where you want and it gives you a nice secure place to add a zip tie. And for the inside, just one little black bolt. Just blends in pretty well. I did manage to scratch the wheel tub that I painted recently, so I gotta touch that up. Just figured before I start rambling, I'll give y'all a little close-up of what I did. They're not identical, but they look pretty good. It's not like, unless you really concentrated on it, it's, I don't know, not super noticeable. I didn't really show this yesterday, or this morning. So it's tied here, and here. So this stuff it has give on itself, but not enough for it to sit there and bounce around and potentially break anything. Next week, I do want to make the mounts for that so I don't just have random bolts hanging through the cab. I just got back out here from eating lunch. I edited everything I have so far. The video's getting kind of long, and I got some house stuff I got to take care of. A couple weeks ago, I had a line from the well take a crap in the yard and had to dig up the yard, and I never finished fixing the yard, so I'm going to try and do that before it gets dark. I just want to say thanks again for everybody. I picked up a lot of new subscribers. I'm pretty sure it's because I got a little shout out from Lower Class Fab, so thanks, man. But we picked up a lot of new subs, and they keep climbing. It's been a good like 3 weeks. A lot of new guys. So thank y'all. Again, every single Sunday we're posting new videos. We're making progress. This thing is actually looking like it could almost drive now, which is pretty good because it's been sitting in my garage for a long time. But I'm rambling. Thanks again. Make sure you do the normal subscribing and all that stuff that everybody always asks you to do. And I'll see y'all next Sunday.